Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, it's playoff time across the NFL, but not for the Philadelphia Eagles. They have the bye week. They have off on Wild Card weekend. So we're going to do a watch guide for the Wild Card matchups in the AFC and NFC with an Eagles lens. That's coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Wednesday edition of the show. I'm Louie DiBiase, riding solo for one more episode. Gino is down in Texas with the CGS All-Star Showcase. He's already in draft mode. We got the Senior Bowl coming up soon too, but we're talking playoffs on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, and it's brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. The Eagles have off this week, but it is playoff time across the NFL. And the NFC, we've got Seahawks 49ers kicking things off on Saturday. Then we have Chargers Jaguars on Sunday. We have Bills Dolphins, Cowboys Buccaneers. We have a loaded schedule, Vikings Giants as well. It's going to be a great weekend. Of course, the Eagles get to relax knowing that they have the bye week, but at the same time, there are certain things I feel like Eagles fans should root for this week to happen so we can move forward towards the divisional round and have the most ideal setup, the most ideal path to get to Arizona, to get to the Super Bowl. I think the guide to the wild card, there's certain things that I'm specifically going to be rooting for, and I think the overall point is root for upsets. I think that's maybe sounding obvious in nature, but I do feel like rooting for upsets in both conferences is big for the Eagles. Not that any team really in the NFC scares me right now. Even the top other seeds in the conference, like San Francisco, Minnesota. Am I really scared of Brock Purdy coming on the road or Kirk Cousins? I am adamant that Minnesota is fraudulent. Maybe I'm not giving San Francisco enough credit, but I just don't think obviously the 49ers defense is incredible. Brock Purdy might have, outside of the Eagles, the other best support system for any quarterback in the NFL with Deebo Samuel when he's healthy. Of course, now they got Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and, Christian McCaffrey and one of the best play callers in football and Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, he's set up really well, as is Kirk Cousins, but heading on the road to Philadelphia, if Jalen Hurts and the offense is firing on all cylinders and they have to keep up, you look back at 2017 when Nick Foles and the Eagles offense went ballistic on Minnesota. Guess who could not keep up? It was Case Keenum. It was a quarterback that was average, and he was propped up by a really good roster. So there isn't really a lot of teams in the NFC that scare me. Honestly, I don't know if many would agree with me, but I'd rather play Minnesota and San Francisco in the playoffs than Tampa Bay, just based on not wanting to play Tom Brady in a team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago and last year still nearly got back to the NFC Championship game. I know they're 8-9, the only team under 500 heading into the playoffs, but I'd rather, and maybe that's crazy, but I'd rather play Minnesota and Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy and the 49ers over Tom Brady. Maybe I'm looking through too much of a quarterback-heavy lens, but I'm very confident about that take. So not scared about really anybody for the Eagles as the playoffs run through Philadelphia, but you still want to root for upsets. You still want to root for either or the Seattle Seahawks and or the New York Giants to get a win against either the Minnesota Vikings, who the Giants play, and the Seahawks play in San Francisco against the 49ers. I'm not predicting that both will get a win, but I will say I'm feeling actually pretty confident that at least one, and again, I don't know, do you guys agree with me? Maybe am I underselling San Fran? I think Minnesota, again, I'm right about. I think this is one of the worst top 3 seeds in a conference that we've seen in a very long time. What, did they not even finish the season with a positive point differential? You look at the last month, they have not been great. So, in really all year, look at when they played the Eagles week 2, the Eagles completely decimated that team on both sides of the ball. I think the Seahawks or the Giants or both could honestly get a win. And that's ideal because, again, nobody really scares me, but it would be really nice to completely avoid Tampa Bay or Dallas. And right now, that's the most likely pairing for the Eagles in the divisional round is if you predict the Niners and Vikings both get a win, the Eagles would play the winner of the 4-5 game, which is Tampa Bay and Dallas. And I would rather play Tampa Bay, or I'd rather play Minnesota and San Fran over Dallas and Tampa. So root for a win between the Seahawks or Giants. So then Seattle or New York would come to Philadelphia at the link. Then you could really almost avoid Tampa Bay or Dallas entirely, unless it's the conference title game, because, you know, Tampa Bay wins their game, right? Let's say they beat the Cowboys and the Seahawks or Giants get a win. The Eagles play the Giants or the Seahawks in the divisional round. And then in the conference championship, maybe you play Tampa Bay. But if not, it's San Fran or Minnesota coming to town. I'm not scared of Dallas or Tampa, but if you can avoid anybody in this conference, I would say it's the Cowboys or Buccaneers. So go Seahawks, go Giants. I think at least one of them can get an upset win. I really do think the toughest teams to play this year in the conference would be the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. If you can dodge that, I think the Eagles have a really easy path to the Super Bowl. If the path to the Super Bowl is just 2 wins against Geno Smith or Daniel Jones and then Brock Purdy or Kirk Cousins, that is definitely what fans should be rooting for. Same thing in the AFC too. I think root for upsets, root for Miami somehow to beat Buffalo, or, you know, if Baltimore can beat Cincinnati. Joe Burrow and that passing offense is on fire right now. I think you definitely root for the Ravens and root for the Chargers or Jaguars. Not really scared about either. Both kind of similar teams right now. But I think rooting for upsets might sound obvious, but I think for the Eagles' path, not really scared of any path, but I think that is what I'm rooting for, is the Seahawks or Giants. Avoid the Buccaneers or Cowboys and give me the Niners or the Vikings in the NFC title game for sure. All right, Eagles fans, I got some more playoff talk coming up next right here on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. I think the Eagles are lucking out when it comes to the quarterback potential matchups in the playoffs in the NFC compared to the AFC. It's been a great year to be in this conference and be the number 1 seed. So that's coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by TurboTax. Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Show your eyes things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. Sing not taxes a lullaby. Hope not taxes sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit, TurboTax, full-service products only. Video meeting while experts do your taxes required. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. And guys, today's episode of Locked On Eagles is also sponsored by Ultimate Football. General Manager, really excited about our new sponsor at Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating through your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season, all in this challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and it's playable offline. Play on the go, even if you don't have Wi-Fi or data, as you want to, when you want to. We've had a lockdown league over the last few months. It's been so much fun to play. These guys are crazy competitive in this game. Download the game and just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. When you use the promo code LOCKEDON in the game store, LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, you're going to get a 100% free boost to your franchise. That's all caps, LOCKEDON. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Eagles fans, thanks so much for tuning into this Wednesday edition of the podcast. And make sure, obviously, Locked On Eagles is your first listen each and every day. Make sure you also, though, subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Plus, in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. And Monday, local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So we're kind of taking a first look at the playoffs that come up this Saturday and Sunday. It's wild card weekend. We know the Eagles right now, they have off. They have the bye week. They have the number 1 seed in the NFC and the NFC East Division Championship, but there are still things to root for. I think You want to root for the Seahawks to beat the 49ers and or the Giants to beat the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's very realistic that more so I think the Giants have a better chance to beat the Vikings than Seattle has at beating San Fran. But Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, they can throw the football. Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant in the backfield. The Seahawks can turn over the ball as well on defense. I think there's a chance that the Eagles could host. I think the most likely outcome is they're hosting Brady or Dak Prescott, the winner of the 4-5 game. But I think there's a chance at least one of Seattle or New York could get a win and head to Philly in the divisional round. And that way, if your path to the Super Bowl is to only beat Daniel Jones or Geno Smith, and then maybe it's Brady, I hope not, or the Cowboys, what if it's Brock Purdy or Kirk Cousins? Let's say it's Daniel Jones and then Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, that is so ideal. I think that's definitely what you want to root for. And you want to root for upsets in the AFC as well. But the AFC is different. The AFC is kind of a gauntlet no matter what. No matter what, the biggest thing in the Eagles' way of a championship this year is going to be an elite young quarterback in the AFC. The Eagles really have lucked out in their own conference when it comes to what quarterbacks they're going to play. Obviously, there's more to a team than a quarterback, but in the playoffs, when two great teams play each other and it's back and forth in a close game, a lot of the time, your quarterback finding a way to make a few more plays, even in a tough spot, makes all the difference. And I trust Jalen Hurts, and he has the advantage in pretty much every game, whoever you play, even against Tom Brady, I think, and Dak Prescott. Brady and Prescott are the two best quarterbacks you could play. And are they, Brady is not who he used to be. He's still somebody I'm a little bit scared of if the game's close late. And Dak Prescott's had a lot of success against the Eagles, but I mean, the Cowboys, we know, choke. I don't even think they're going to make it to Philly. So outside of that, it's Kirk Cousins, it's Brock Purdy, it's Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. I mean, if you're a team in the AFC, right? Like Kansas City's incredible. Buffalo's incredible. But to get to the Super Bowl, those teams are going to have to play. Like you look at the Bills. Yeah, they play Miami this week. But after that, to get to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to go through Joe Burrow probably, and then Patrick Mahomes, and then play somebody like Jalen Hurts. The AFC is a gauntlet of young quarterbacks. And I didn't even mention in there, I mentioned Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow, but you've got Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Herbert. Are those amazing rosters and great teams? No, not right now, but those are uber talented, young, generational players at the quarterback position. And then potentially if Lamar Jackson ever comes back, that's another former MVP that's in that conference. The only team in that playoff in that conference that doesn't have a great quarterback, Miami, is missing Tua. They have an elite wide receiver duo, though, at least to make up for it with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So the Eagles really did luck out with not having to be in a conference that's just loaded with quarterbacks. That's why I'm really glad that the Green Bay Packers didn't make it, because although, again, the Packers, like Tampa Bay and a lot of these other teams, are a shell of who they used to be, at the same time, I know San Francisco's roster is better than these teams. I know Minnesota's roster is better than these teams. But honestly, I'd rather play the Vikings. I'd rather play the Niners than have to play a Tom Brady to get to the Super Bowl, than have to play an Aaron Rodgers, because those guys, they're still elite. They are still players that have gone through it before, that have won championships, that know how to win in the playoffs. And I'm never going to feel as confident when even the 8-9 Buccaneers, you've seen multiple times this year, if the game, even if it's 17-17 or 17-14 or whatever it is, and Brady needs just a field goal or a touchdown to win, and he's got one final drive, even at 45 years old, he is still just as good in those situations as he was when he was 35, as he was when he was 25 years old. So to me, I think if you can avoid Brady, and I'm really glad Rodgers didn't make the playoffs, the only big-time quarterback battle is going to be in the Super Bowl. The Eagles' really only big quarterback battle will be against Josh Allen if they can make it all the way, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, one of those guys that represents the AFC in Arizona. So, I think that's definitely a huge advantage, and it's part of why, although the Eagles are heading into the playoffs not playing their best ball, losing 2 straight and then barely beating Davis Webb and the backups of New York to clinch the 1 seed in the division. At the same time, the entire NFC has been inconsistent this year. Nobody is on fire that I'm pointing to and saying they're playing such good football right now. I don't want to see them. Dallas just lost to Washington. Tampa Bay barely held off the 7-10 Panthers and Saints to win the division. The Niners look really good for sure. They're hot, but Brock Purdy has slowly been coming down performance-wise. Minnesota has been reeling. This is the entire conference, and I trust the Eagles of all those teams with home field advantage throughout the playoffs will bounce back, especially considering they're the best quarterback of any of those teams and still the best roster. So, and they're going to be getting healthy. That's why I'm still wasn't happy. You guys know that. You heard the game recap on Monday, but it's why I'm still very confident in this team is that the conference they have and the home field advantage and the position they're in, the path to the Super Bowl, even worst case, if you got to play Dallas and then San Francisco, not ideal, but I still think it's a lot easier than what the Chiefs have to deal with this year, what the Buffalo Bills have to deal with, what pretty much every team in the AFC has to go through. It's a young quarterback gauntlet of first-round picks and top talent. That is not the case in the NFC. How many first-round quarterbacks are even in? I think, is it just one? I think it's Daniel Jones, and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the playoffs. I think he is, you could argue him or Brock Purdy, but there is nobody else. Jalen Hurts is a second-round pick. Geno Smith, a second-round pick. Brady, a sixth-rounder. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Dak Prescott was a fourth-rounder. Kirk Cousins was a third, I believe, in 2011. Pretty crazy. The path in the NFC, very doable. I'm not going to be happy. This is not a year where I say, oh, it was nice to just get one playoff win. To me, this season is Super Bowl or bust. It's why I did not buy any division championship gear. I'm all in on getting to Arizona. I think the path is there for the Eagles. Guys, I want to talk about Doug Pederson coming up next. I've just been so happy for what the former Eagle Super Bowl winning head coach is doing in Jacksonville. Just want to give his flowers to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the show. That's coming up right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks Daily Fantasy. I've won a lot of money with Prize Picks this year because I hammered the over on Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown these last 2 months. Been going off. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. So here's how the game works. If you pick 2 to 5 players, you also project if they're going to score more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry, and there's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections Prize Picks makes available. And they offer projections on pretty much any sport you watch. Of course, the NFL and college sports, the NBA, the MLB, NHL, PGA golf. You've got women's basketball, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA and boxing, cricket even, Euro basketball, disc golf. That's right, frolf. All that and more at Prize Picks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe and fast withdrawals as well. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Eagles fans, we are wrapping up this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. And I want to do it by giving props to the Eagles Super Bowl winning head coach of 2017. Doug Pederson took the Jacksonville Jaguars from a 3-7 hole to a AFC South Division championship. And now they're going to be hosting a playoff game on Saturday night against Justin Herbert in the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm so damn proud of Doug. I think the majority of Eagles fans are still Doug Pederson guys. I mean, how can you not be? He won the Eagles their first ever championship. He took them nearly back to the conference title the year later, won you a division in 2019. I know 2020 went down and some people were frustrated with his play calling and, his decisions with the coaching staff. But I've always been a team Doug guy. As much as I love Nick Sirianni, and I think they got it as right as you could have after firing Doug, I never believed that he should have been fired to begin with. I thought he was set up very poorly with all the injuries and the bad drafting and Carson Wentz's historic regression and general manager Howie Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie kind of middling and making some decisions for him when it comes to the coaching staff, and then bad drafts, bad free agent signings. He had to overcome a lot. And yet he still, after the Super Bowl in 2017, in 2018 and 2019, those were historically tough circumstances. And he found a way to get this team hot, win 5 of 6 in 2018, get into the playoffs, squeak in, win a playoff game, nearly beat the 1 seed in New Orleans on the road to get back to the conference title with a backup quarterback with historic amount of injuries on both sides of the ball. He does the exact same thing in 2019, winning 4 straight games with Carson Wentz to win the division. The roster banged up, not talented, old, practice squad level receivers out there, still finds a way to get it done. And obviously 2020 was the camel that broke whatever, the straw that broke the camel's back. That's right. 2020, it was kind of a lot of the same circumstances, and it finally caved in with COVID as well. But I don't really blame, Doug had his hand in the downfall of the Eagles, but not nearly as much as others. I think the circumstances were really tough, and he found a way all the time to get this team to play. And it was so cool. The 2018 and 2019 me kind of came back up watching that Jaguars-Titans game, just thinking, man, that is such an awesome story. And Doug is so resilient. He always finds a way. The Jaguars are 3-7. They're coming off a traumatic year with Urban Meyer, who was the worst head coaching hire, I think, in the history of the NFL. He's got his work cut out for him with this very young team. He's 3-7 and found a way to catch up to Tennessee. And in a do-or-die situation again at the end of the year, his team pulls it out to make the playoffs. I think Doug Pederson is an elite head coach. I think he has a case to win Coach of the Year, and I don't think he ever deserved to get fired in Philadelphia. Again, I love the moves Philly's made since then to do better, for sure. But Doug Pederson is always, even in 2020, he's always been a great head coach to me, and you're never going to change my mind on that. I'm so happy to see Pederson is hosting a playoff game. And I think I'm going to take Jaguars money line on Bet Online. I think I'm going to take the Jaguars over the Chargers. At home, Saturday night, I don't know. It's going to be an exciting game, though. Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Herbert. We've got Seahawks Niners as well on Saturday. That's a pretty good start to the playoffs. So enjoy the wild card round stress-free. The Eagles are off. They will not be playing a playoff game until the divisional round at Lincoln Financial Field. We'll continue to cover the playoffs all throughout the week right here on Locked On Eagles, a show for you Monday through Friday on all podcast platforms. Hit us up on Twitter as well, at Locked On Birds and at DiBiase, LOE. Gino will be back on the show tomorrow, back from Texas at home in Colorado. Until then, everybody, thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Go listen now to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insight you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thank you for downloading Locked On Eagles. Thank you for watching and listening. And as always, let's go Birds.